A noble reward, eh? Well deserved, you'll admit. Should you wonder, then, if the whole town of Boulogne were engaged just now in finding that mysterious hero, and delivering him into our hands? How many mothers, sisters, wives, think you, at the present moment, would fail to lay hands on the English adventurer, if a husband's or a son's life or freedom happened to be at stake? I have some records there," he continued, pointing in the direction of the table, "which tell me that there are 35 natives of Boulogne in the local prisons, a dozen more in the prisons of Paris. Of these, at least 20 have been tried already, and are condemned to death. Every hour that the Scarlet Pimpernel succeeds in evading his captors, so many deaths lie at his door. If he succeeds in once more reaching England safely, 60 lives, mayhap, will be the price of his escape. Nay, but I see your ladyship is shivering with cold," he added with a dry little laugh. "Shall I close the window, or do you wish to hear what punishment will be meted out to Boulogne, if on the day that the Scarlet Pimpernel is captured, Lady Blakeney happens to have left the shelter of these city walls?" "I pray you proceed, monsieur," she rejoined with perfect calm. "The Committee of Public Safety," he resumed, "would look upon this city as a nest of traitors, if on the day that the Scarlet Pimpernel becomes our prisoner, Lady Blakeney herself, the wife of that notorious English spy, had already quitted Boulogne. The whole town knows by now that you are in our hands, you, the most precious hostage we can hold for the ultimate capture of the man whom we all fear and detest. Virtually the town crier is at the present moment proclaiming to the inhabitants of this city: 'We want that man, but we already have his wife. See to it, citizens, that she does not escape. For if she do, we shall summarily shoot the breadwinner in every family in the town.'" A cry of horror escaped Marguerite's parched lips. "Are you devils then, all of you," she gasped, "that you should think of such things?" "Aye, some of us are devils, no doubt," said Chauvelin drily. "But why should you honour us in this case with so flattering an epithet? We are mere men striving to guard our property, and mean no harm to the citizens of Boulogne. We have threatened them, true, but is it not for you and that elusive Pimpernel to see that the threat is never put into execution?" "You would not do it!" she repeated, horror-stricken. "Nay, I pray you, fair lady, do not deceive yourself. At present the proclamation sounds like a mere threat, I'll allow, but let me assure you that if we fail to capture the Scarlet Pimpernel, and if you, on the other hand, are spirited out of this fortress by that mysterious adventurer, we shall undoubtedly shoot or guillotine every able-bodied man and woman in this town." He had spoken quietly and emphatically, neither with bombast nor with rage, and Marguerite saw in his face nothing but a calm and ferocious determination, the determination of an entire nation embodied in this one man, to be revenged at any cost. She would not let him see the depth of her despair, nor would she let him read in her face the unutterable hopelessness which filled her soul. It were useless to make an appeal to him. She knew full well that from him she could obtain neither gentleness nor mercy. "I hope at last I have made the situation quite clear to your ladyship," he was asking quite pleasantly now. "See how easy is your position. You have but to remain quiescent in room number 6, and if any chance of escape be offered you ere the Scarlet Pimpernel is captured, you need but to think of all the families of Boulogne who would be deprived of their breadwinner, fathers and sons mostly, but there are girls too who support their mothers or sisters. The fish curers of Boulogne are mostly women, and there are the net makers and the seamstresses, all would suffer if your ladyship were no longer to be found in number 6 room of this ancient fort, whilst all would be included in the amnesty, if the Scarlet Pimpernel fell into our hands." He gave a low, satisfied chuckle, which made Marguerite think of the evil spirits in hell exulting over the torments of unhappy lost souls. "I think, Lady Blakeney," he added drily, and making her an ironical bow, "that your humble servant hath outwitted the elusive hero at last." Quietly he turned on his heel and went back into the room, Marguerite remaining motionless beside the open window, where the soft, brine-laden air, the distant murmur of the sea, the occasional cry of a sea-mew, all seemed to mock her agonizing despair. The voice of the town crier came nearer and nearer now. She could hear the words he spoke quite distinctly, something about amnesty and pardon, the reward for the capture of the Scarlet Pimpernel, the lives of men, women and children in exchange for his. Oh, she knew what all that meant! That Percy would not hesitate one single instant to throw his life into the hands of his enemies in exchange for that of others. Others! Others! Always others! This sigh that had made her heart ache so often in England, what terrible significance it bore now! And now he would suffer in his heart and in his pride, because of her whom he could not even attempt to save, since it would mean the death of others, always of others! She wondered if he had already landed in Boulogne. Again she remembered the vision on the landing stage, his massive figure, the glimpse she had of the loved form in the midst of the crowd. The moment he entered the town he would hear the proclamation read, see it posted up no doubt on every public building, and realise that she had been foolish enough to follow him, that she was a prisoner, and that he could do nothing to save her. What would he do? Marguerite at the thought instinctively pressed her hands to her heart. The agony of it all had become physically painful. She hoped that perhaps this pain meant approaching death. Oh, how easy would this simple solution be! The moon peered out from beneath the bank of clouds which had obscured her for so long. Smiling, she drew her pencilled silver lines along the edge of towers and pinnacles, the frowning beffroi and those stony walls which seemed to Marguerite as if they encircled a gigantic graveyard. The town crier had evidently ceased to read the proclamation. One by one the windows in the public square were lighted up from within. The citizens of Boulogne wanted to think over the strange events which had occurred without their knowledge, yet which were apparently to have such direful or joyous consequences for them. A man to be captured, the mysterious English adventurer of whom they had all heard but whom nobody had seen, and a woman, his wife, to be guarded until the man was safely under lock and key. Marguerite felt as if she could almost hear them talking it over, and vowing that she should not escape, and that the Scarlet Pimpernel should soon be captured. A gentle wind stirred the old gnarled trees on the southern ramparts, a wind that sounded like the sigh of swiftly dying hope. What could Percy do now? His hands were tied, and he was inevitably destined to endure the awful agony of seeing the woman he loved die a terrible death beside him. Having captured him, they would not keep him long. No necessity for a trial, for detention, for formalities of any kind. A summary execution at dawn on the public place, a roll of drums, a public holiday to mark the joyful event, and a brave man will have ceased to live. A noble heart have stilled its beatings forever, whilst a whole nation gloried over the deed. Sleep, citizens of Boulogne, all is still. The night watchman had replaced the town crier. All was quiet within the city walls. The inhabitants could sleep in peace, a beneficent government was wakeful and guarding their rest. But many of the windows of the town remained lighted up, and at a little distance below her, round the corner so that she could not see it, a small crowd must have collected in front of the gateway which led into the courtyard of the Gayole fort. Marguerite could hear a persistent murmur of voices, mostly angry and threatening, and once there were loud cries of "English spies" and "A la lanterne!" "The citizens of Boulogne are guarding the treasures of France," commented Chauvelin drily, as he laughed again that cruel, mirthless laugh of his. Then she roused herself from her torpor. She did not know how long she had stood beside the open window, but the fear seized her that that man must have seen and gloated over the agony of her mind. She straightened her graceful figure, threw back her proud head defiantly, and quietly walked up to the table, where Chauvelin seemed once more absorbed in the perusal of his papers. "Is this interview over?" she asked quietly, and without the slightest tremor in her voice. "May I go now?" "As soon as you wish," he replied with gentle irony. He regarded her with obvious delight, for truly she was beautiful, grand in this attitude of defiant despair. The man who had spent the last half hour in martyrizing her gloried over the misery which he had wrought, and which all her strength of will could not entirely banish from her face. "Will you believe me, Lady Blakeney," he added, "that there is no personal animosity in my heart towards you or your husband? Have I not told you that I do not wish to compass his death? Yet you propose to send him to the guillotine as soon as you have laid hands on him. I have explained to you the measures which I have taken in order to make sure that we do lay hands on the Scarlet Pimpernel. Once he is in our power, it will rest with him to walk to the guillotine, or to embark with you on board his yacht. You propose to place an alternative before Sir Percy Blakeney? Certainly. To offer him his life, and that of his charming wife. In exchange for what? His honour. He will refuse, monsieur. We shall see." Then he touched a handbell which stood on the table, and within a few seconds the door was opened, and the soldier who had led Marguerite hither re-entered the room. The interview was at an end. It had served its purpose. Marguerite knew now that she must not even think of escape for herself, or hope for safety for the man she loved. Of Chauvelin's talk of a bargain which would touch Percy's honour she would not even think, and she was too proud to ask anything further from him. Chauvelin stood up and made her a deep bow as she crossed the room and finally went out of the door. The little company of soldiers closed in around her, and she was once more led along the dark passages back to her own prison cell. End of chapter 23.